Make sure you do that every time you log in.
It was so funny when I heard that machine. It's like
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
took classes back in 1990 and they're like, oh yeah, here you are.
are you ready? We are talking about an orientation of human body. So in last lecture we stopped somewhere here. We are talking about the systems in our body. How many systems we have in our body? 11 systems. Very good. And we stopped somewhere here. Two systems. Among those 11 systems in our body, two systems are called the controlling systems in our body. Which two systems? The nervous system and the endocrine system. Very good. And I told you that nervous system is more powerful than the endocrine system. The reason is nerve signal transmission occurs by electrical means. Electrical transmission, which is very fast, right? It can fix or control any thing very quickly. So we have talked about the parts of the nervous system: brain, spinal cord, and nerves. We have one brain, one spinal cord, and many nerves in our body, right? So those are the parts of the nervous system. Then the other controlling system is the endocrine system. Endocrine system consists of a number of endocrine glands present in our body. So first we will see the important endocrine glands, their locations and functions in our body. So I'll just go over quickly over the important endocrine glands, starting in the brain, the top part of the body. Inside your brain, you have two important endocrine glands. One is called the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is called the master gland. Okay, master gland of the body. That means master means boss. So pituitary gland is the gland that controls other endocrine glands of the body. Boss controls the subordinates, right, in the office. Similarly, pituitary gland is sitting on the top and controlling other endocrine glands of the body. That's why it is called the master gland of the body. Okay? And so in the test, I may ask you that which gland is called the master gland of the body, that is the pituitary gland. And if I ask you what's the function of the pituitary gland, it controls the other glands. Simple, right? Controls the other glands. Now, there is another endocrine gland in your brain that is called the pineal gland. And pineal gland performs two important functions. Number one, pineal gland is responsible for circadian rhythms. Have you heard this term, circadian rhythms? What is that? Day-night cycle. Yes, very good. So we sleep at night and stay awake at the daytime, right? Normal. So that cycle in our body, 12-hour cycle, that is the circadian cycle or circadian rhythm. Pineal gland also helps in the synthesis of melanin, dark pigments in our body. Okay? So those two are the important functions of pineal gland. Now, if you go down in front of your lower part of the neck, you have a gland that is called the thyroid gland. So thyroid gland is located in front of the lower part of the neck here. And if you see the thyroid gland, it has two lobes, right and left lobes, and two lobes are connected by a tissue mass that is called isthmus. Okay, so isthmus is the tissue that connects two lobes of thyroid gland. Right and left lobes are connected by isthmus. Now, the most important function of this gland is regulation of metabolism, or controlling the metabolic activities in our body. So thyroid hormones control or regulate the metabolism or metabolic activities in the body. Now, if you go down inside your thorax, you have an endocrine gland that is called the thymus. And thymus is responsible for immunity, defensive functions in our body. Okay? So, thymus is responsible for immunity or defensive functions in our body. Make sense? Now, if you go further down, inside your abdomen, on the top of your kidneys, how many kidneys you have? Two. On the top of your kidneys, you have adrenal glands. Adrenal glands are also called suprarenal glands. Same thing, okay? Another name of adrenal gland is suprarenal gland. It makes sense. Supra means what? Above, and renal indicates kidneys. So above the kidneys, like the crown of the kidneys or cap of the kidneys, two glands are sitting on two kidneys. Those are suprarenal glands or adrenal glands. Adrenal glands perform a number of very important functions in our body. Number one, these glands also help in metabolic activities. So metabolism, number one, or help in metabolism. Number two, adrenal hormones have strong anti-inflammatory functions. Strong what? Anti-inflammatory. You know that you can buy an ointment if you go to Walgreens or Shoppers Drug, or what is that, another CVS, right? You can buy hydrocortisone. Do you know that? Hydrocortisone, 0.1% or 0.2% hydrocortisone. Hydrocortisone is nothing but adrenal hormone or synthesized adrenal hormone. So, it has strong anti-inflammatory. You know that if you get, inflammation, if you put that ointment, it's very fast, strong action, anti-inflammatory action it has. So, the adrenal hormones have strong anti-inflammatory functions in our body. Just remember those two functions, metabolic activity and anti-inflammatory functions. Then if you see inside the abdomen another gland that is called the pancreas. Pancreas is a mixed type gland. So if I ask you what type of gland the pancreas is a mixed type gland. Okay? All other glands we are talking about here are purely endocrine glands, because we are talking about the endocrine system, right? So all other glands you see here are purely endocrine glands. But pancreas is a mixed type gland. Why? Because the pancreas has both endocrine and exocrine parts. Okay? So pancreas has both endocrine and exocrine parts. In our body, we have two types of glands, endocrine glands and exocrine glands. Okay? How many different types of glands we have? Two, exocrine and endocrine. Since we are talking about endocrine system, we are talking about endocrine glands, right? We are talking about pancreas because it has an endocrine part. Make sense? And the endocrine part of pancreas produces two very important hormones, insulin and glucagon. Insulin and glucagon. Those two hormones are produced by the endocrine part of pancreas. We are not going to talk about the exocrine part because we are talking about the endocrine system. Okay? Insulin does what? Insulin, what's the function of insulin? It reduces, right? Decreases the blood sugar. We all know that. Insulin decreases the blood sugar. Glucagon does just opposite. So what should be the function of glucagon? Increasing the blood sugar. And because of the balance of those two hormones, our blood sugar is maintained. Okay? So if blood sugar goes up, more insulin will be released to bring it down. If blood sugar goes down, glucagon should be released to move it up. Is it clear? Okay. So that's about pancreas. Now, if you go down in male body, we have male gonads. Male gonads. What are the male gonads? Male gonads are testes. And in female body, we have female gonads, and female gonads are ovaries. And testes produce male sex hormone testosterone, and ovaries produce female sex hormones estrogen and progesterone. So, since testes and ovaries produce hormones, they are the part of endocrine system. Make sense? So those are the important endocrine glands and their functions. Now, if I ask you in the test, I'm just giving you a few examples what kind of questions you may expect, and probably you will get some of those. Number one, how many systems we have in our body? 11. How many controlling systems we have in our body? 2. Which two systems are called the controlling systems? Nervous and endocrine. Which one is faster? Because the signal is transmitted electrically, right? Okay. Now, endocrine gland. Which endocrine gland is located where? If I ask you that inside the brain, following two endocrine glands are present, pituitary and pineal. And which gland is called the master gland of the body, right? The pituitary gland. And which gland controls the circadian rhythms? Pineal controls the circadian day-night cycle, right? Which gland is located in the front of lower part of the neck? Thyroid. How many lobes the thyroid has? 2. Okay. What's the most important function of the thyroid gland? Metabolism, regulation or control, controlling the metabolism, metabolic activity. Now if I ask you inside the thorax, you have what? Thymus, right? What's the most important function of the thymus? Immunity. It fights against the microorganisms, right? If I ask you what type of gland the pancreas is a mixed type gland because it has both endocrine and exocrine components or parts, right? Endocrine part of pancreas produces which two hormones? Insulin and glucagon. Which one does what? You know that, right? Now, what are the male gonads? And what are the female gonads? Ovaries. How many male gonads the male body usually have? 2. How many female gonads? 2. 2 ovaries, 2 testes. Okay, so just remember those things. cardiovascular system is a very important system in our body. You know the importance of this system. Heart is a very important organ in our body, right? And from its name, cardiovascular, you can tell what are the parts or organs of this system. Cardio indicates the heart and vascular indicates the blood vessels, right? So heart and the blood vessels are the parts of cardiovascular system. Now, how many heart we have? One. And what are the blood vessels we have? We have arteries, we have veins, and we have capillaries, right? So, blood vessels include arteries, veins, and capillaries. Okay, so those are the parts of this system. Heart is a hollow muscular organ. That means hollow means there is a cavity inside. And if I ask you, what's the function of the heart? What's the function of the heart? Pumping the blood. So heart pumps the blood. And what is the function of the blood vessels? Yes, they transport the blood. Okay, so distribute the blood throughout the body, right? So blood vessels distribute the blood throughout the body. So heart pumps the blood and creates pressure, and that pressure will move or circulate the blood throughout the body, through the blood vessels. Now, why cardiovascular system should move the blood or distribute the blood throughout the body? Because blood transports oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, metabolic waste, those things. So blood transports nutrients, oxygen, carbon dioxide, harmful toxic chemicals, those are being produced in our body, right? Those important chemicals are transported by the blood. Lymphatic system is responsible for the immunity or defensive functions in our body, and that's why this system is also called immune system. Important parts of the lymphatic system are thymus. Thymus is also a part of endocrine system, right? And I told you that thymus is responsible for immunity. Spleen is another organ of the lymphatic system. So thymus, spleen, lymph nodes. Lymph nodes are small round nodes distributed throughout the body, present throughout the body, tiny round structures. And then lymphatic vessels, like blood vessels, in the lymphatic system we have tube-like structures. Those are the lymphatic vessels. And inside the lymphatic vessels, the lymph, the fluid circulates. So the fluid of the lymphatic system is called the lymph, or lymphatic fluid that circulates inside the lymphatic vessels. So those are the parts of the lymphatic system. Now, the function is it provides the defensive functions of the body. Just know that. Next is the respiratory system. Respiratory system helps in breathing. And the important parts of respiratory system, if we start from the top, first organ is the nose. And inside the nose, you have a cavity that is called the nasal cavity. And then if you go down, next organ or part is the pharynx. Pharynx is a muscular tube. And next to pharynx is the larynx. Larynx is mostly cartilaginous structure or cartilaginous part. And below the larynx, we have trachea. Trachea is also called air tube. Okay? So trachea then divides, the lower end of trachea divides into two bronchi, right and left. Bronchus is singular. If you indicate one, that is bronchus. when we indicate two bronchi. Yes.
For the trachea, what did you say for the tube?
It's also called air tube.
Air.
Yeah, air tube. Okay.
Thanks.
So lower end of trachea divides into how many bronchi? Two bronchi, right and left. Then those two bronchi enter into the lung. How many lungs we have? Two lungs, right and left. And lungs are the last or terminal organs of the respiratory system. Okay? Terminal or last organs of the respiratory system. And lungs are filled with tiny balls, millions of tiny air balls are present inside the lung, and those tiny air balls are called what? Alveoli. Very good. So lungs are filled with millions of air balls. Those are called alveoli. Okay, so those are the parts of the respiratory system. Now, the important functions. If I ask anybody that what's the function of the respiratory system, everybody will answer breathing, right? Very simple. So number one, respiratory system helps in breathing. Number two, why we breathe? Just think that, why we breathe. When we inhale the air, we take the air from outside to inside the lung, right? What type of air? That air has a lot of oxygen. We take the air to take oxygen inside the body, right? And that oxygen goes to the lung. And from the lung, the oxygen goes to the blood. From the lung, the oxygen goes to the blood. And that exchange of oxygen from the lung to the blood, and our body produces carbon dioxide, right? So that carbon dioxide also comes to the lung, and from the lung, the oxygen, from the lung, the carbon dioxide goes to the lung, and from the lung, oxygen goes to the blood. Make sense? So we inhale the oxygen, that oxygen goes from the lung to the blood, and from the blood, the carbon dioxide goes to the lung. Okay? So that exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the lung and the blood, right? The exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the blood and the lung takes place inside the lung, inside the respiratory system. So exchange of gas is another very important function of the respiratory system. Okay. The digestive system. First, we'll see the parts of this system. The main part of digestive system is a long tube that extends from the mouth to the anus. It's a long tube, continuous tube. It starts at the mouth and ends at the anus. And the tube has different parts and different locations. That tube gets expanded or constricted. Make sense? But it is a continuous tube. Some places that tube is very narrow, some places very wide, some places in between. Okay? So we'll see the parts of that tube. First structure is the mouth. And inside the mouth we have oral cavity. The cavity inside the mouth is the oral cavity. And then from the mouth to the stomach, a narrow, long tube is called the esophagus. Okay, so esophagus is a narrow tube that connects the mouth to the stomach. And then what happens? The tube gets very wide, very expanded, okay, and forms the stomach. Okay, so stomach is the next organ, and then the tube again gets very narrow and long, very long. That is called a small intestine. Okay, and then the tube gets slightly wider or expands, and that forms the large intestine. Okay, so you see that it is a continuous tube at different locations. It gets narrower or expanded or wider and forms different organs. outside of that tube-like structure, we have few other organs. Those are also the part of the digestive system. What are those organs? Liver, gallbladder. Okay, so those are also the parts of the digestive system, but they are not the part of the tube. They are outside of the tube, right? They are outside of the tube. The liver, the gallbladder, just remember those couple of organs. Okay, now important functions of the digestive system. Digestive system, its name is telling you what's the most important function of this system, right? Digestive system helps in digestion. So number one function is digestion. Number two, absorption. Number three, metabolism. And number four, excretion. Okay. So first, what is digestion? Digestion is the breakdown of food. Very simple definition, breakdown of food. And digestion starts in the mouth. After you take the food inside your mouth, what you do? Chew. You crush the food, grind the food, right? And saliva is secreted, released there. So both chemical and mechanical digestions start inside the mouth. Mechanical means you are chewing the food, right? Chemical is saliva has enzymes that will also break the food. Anyway, so just know that digestion is the process of breakdown of food, and that starts in the mouth. And it continues after the digestion is complete inside the mouth. We send the food to the stomach, right? Where the acids and other chemicals are released and further digestion occurs. And next step is the absorption. What is that? Absorption is the process by which the digested food or nutrients are taken into the blood from the intestine. So from the digestive system or from the intestine, the digested food or nutrients are taken into the blood. That process, taking the nutrients into the blood, is called absorption. Okay, so absorption is the process of taking the nutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, those molecules into the blood. From where? From the intestine. Make sense? Okay, so that is absorption. Number three, metabolism. The nutrients will be taken to the tissues. So blood will take the nutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, those molecules to the tissues of the body. And we need those nutrients for metabolism. Okay? But all metabolism occurs everywhere in the body. In all living tissues, the metabolism occurs. But the most important organ for metabolism is the liver. Liver is the main organ for metabolism. And liver is a part of which system? Digestive system, right? We have just seen that liver is a part of the digestive system. And main metabolism occurs in the liver. So we can say that metabolism is an important function of the digestive system. Then excretion. After the absorption is completed, unnecessary foodstuffs should be removed from the body, and that happens by producing the feces, and that gets out from the body, and that process is called the excretion. Okay, so unnecessary foodstuffs are thrown out from the body as feces, and that's the excretion. So those are the important functions of the digestive system. Okay. Next system is the urinary system. Urinary system is mainly responsible for excretion of metabolic wastes. metabolic toxic substances, those are substances, those are produced in our body, those should be thrown out from the body, and urinary system is mainly responsible for that. Now, first we'll see what are the parts of the urinary system. First, organs are kidneys. How many kidneys we have? Two kidneys, right and left. And if I ask you, tell me in one sentence, what is the function of kidney?
Yes.
To do what? To produce? To produce urine. The simplest way is production of urine, right? Production of urine is the function of the kidney. Now, if I ask you next question, that how the kidneys produce urine, then by filtering the blood, right? By filtering the blood, kidneys produce what? Urine. Is it clear? So, that's the function. Now you got the function of the kidney very nicely, that by filtering the blood, kidneys produce urine. Production of urine. Okay. After the urine is produced in the kidneys, the urine should be taken to the bladder, urinary bladder. Two narrow tubes take the urine from the kidneys to the bladder. And those tubes are called what? Ureters. So we have two ureters, and function of ureters is transportation. Transport the urine from the kidneys to the bladder. And bladder is a hollow muscular organ. That means it has a cavity inside where the urine is stored, right, for few to several hours. So bladder is located in the pelvic cavity here, and it is a hollow muscular organ that has a cavity inside to hold the urine for few to several hours. And that is very important because continuously the kidneys, your kidneys are producing urine, right? Continuously kidneys are producing urine. If, just think that if you don't have any bladder, what will happen? Continuously urine will get out from the body, right? And that's not good. Okay, so that's why bladder is very important to hold the urine for several hours, few to several hours, and when you decide, you can throw it out from the body. Right? Very important. And urethra, the last part. This part is different in male and female. In female, the urethra is very short. In male, it is very long. That's the difference. Only this part is different in male and female. And urethra is the narrow tube that takes the urine from the bladder to the atmosphere. Okay, so transports the urine from the bladder to the outside of the body. That part is the urethra. So you know the organs of the urinary system and their functions. Okay. Now, we are almost at the end of those 11 systems. The reproductive system. Reproductive system is the most interesting system in our body. This is the only system which is completely different in male and female. Male reproductive system is completely different than the female reproductive system. And because of this system, you can separate the male and female. Now, what are the parts of male reproductive system? The most important organs or parts of male reproductive system are testes. So male body has two testes, and those are the most important parts of the male reproductive system. And other parts are external genitalia, penis, scrotum, and prostate, which is a gland, also a part of male reproductive system. Ductus deferens or vas deferens is a tube-like structure in the male reproductive system. So These are the important parts of male reproductive system. The female reproductive system, the most important organs are ovaries, okay, and other parts are fallopian tube or uterine tube. There's no uterine tube, another name is fallopian tube. So uterine tube, uterus, and vagina, external genitalia, and mammary glands or female breast. So those are the parts of female reproductive system. Okay. Now I said that which organs are the most important organs of male reproductive system? Testes. And why we say that testes are the most important organs? Because testes produce more important thing testes produce sperm. Okay. Also testes produce testosterone hormone. Yes. So testes produce sperm. And why ovaries are the most important organs of female reproductive system? Because ovaries produce eggs or ovum, right? And both are essential for the reproduction, for the new life. Now, other parts of male and female reproductive system, those are important but not essential. Let me give you the example. If you take a sperm from the male body and an ovum from the female body, you can do in vitro fertilization. You all know that. We can put those two in a petri dish and we can cause the fertilization without the help of other structures, right? But we must get the sperm, we must get the ovum. Those we cannot create, right? So that's why the testes and ovaries, those are the most important organs in the reproductive system. Other structures are important, but without those, we can cause the fertilization, we can create the new life. Okay. Okay. Testes and ovaries also produce the hormones, sex hormones, and we have talked about because that's why they are also part of endocrine systems, right? Testes and ovaries are also parts of the endocrine system because they produce the sex hormones, right? So if I ask you in the test that which organ is the part of both male and both reproductive and the endocrine system, and I will give you, for example, kidneys, right? Heart, lung, and ovaries. Ovaries or testes. Now, the functions of reproductive system by producing sperm and ovum, the reproductive systems help in the production of offspring, new life. Okay? So reproduction is number one. Number two, by producing the sex hormones, the reproductive systems help in the secondary sex characteristics. Okay? What are the secondary sex characteristics? Just know that secondary sex characteristics are the features. By looking those, we can separate male and female. Okay? So those are the secondary sex characteristics. Externally, by looking those appearances or features, we can separate male and female. Okay? So those secondary sex characteristics are given by the sex hormones, and sex hormones are produced by the reproductive system, right? The ovaries and testes. Right? What are the male secondary sex characteristics? Anybody? Just give me an example. Secondary sex characteristics are the features. By looking those, you can separate male and female externally. I said male.
Facial hair.
Facial hair. Okay. Do you think anything else? Loud, right? Male voice is loud. That's one. Anything else? This side. You can
Broader shoulders, possibly.
broader shoulder muscles, skeletal muscles are more what? Prominent skeletal muscle, right? What is this?
Adam's apple.
Laryngeal
Is there a
prominence.
purpose for that? I mean, other than saying, okay, that's a male and that's a female?
Not really. It doesn't have any significance, but only one thing is that this piece of cartilage, the thyroid cartilage here, that forms the laryngeal prominence. This cartilage is sensitive to testosterone. So when in before puberty, you won't see that prominence in male children, but you will see that after puberty. At puberty, it starts to grow and then it becomes prominent. The reason is at puberty, the testosterone is released, right, in male body, and that testosterone stimulates this cartilage to grow. So this cartilage is very sensitive to testosterone. There is no physiological significance in that. The sound is actually produced by the vocal cord inside this, okay? So I need to know any of this later, okay? So that is another secondary sex characteristics. Adam's apple, usually in anatomy we say laryngeal prominence. Prominence of laryngeal cartilage here, okay? Anything else? What is this? What happens here? Yeah,
Pattern baldness.
baldness, right? It will say that facial hair, distribution of hair in the body, right? All those are given by the male sex hormone testosterone. What are the female secondary sex characteristics? Can you think any?
Breasts.
Breasts, yes, very good. Broader hips, very good. High pitch voice, right? High pitch. Although it's not loud, but you can hear far. People from far. Sometimes even if you close this door, you see that you hear the sound comes from outside. It's not loud, but high pitch frequency. Distribution of fat under the skin. Okay. In female body, the fat is more under the skin and nicely distributed. That's why skin looks smooth. Okay. Male, less fat is there. So those are given by the sex hormones. Okay. Secondary sex characteristics. Number 3, sexual behavior. Okay. You know that the behavior changes after puberty, right? Before puberty is different, and after puberty, the sexual desire and drive, those things start to occur. So that is also given by sex hormones. Number 4, development or growth of sex organs. So those are also helped by the hormones. So these are the functions of reproductive system. Okay, now we are done with all those 11 systems. 2 important things we have learned. Number 1, important parts or organs of those systems, right? You have to remember those. If I ask you, kidneys are the parts of which system? Urinary system. Trachea is a part of? Uterus is a part of? Reproductive, right? Testis is a part of, as well as endocrine, right? So those are the kind of questions. Ureter is a part of urinary system, right? That tube that takes the urine from the kidney to the function of the kidney is production of urine. Transportation of urine is the function of the ureter, right? Storage of urine is the function of the bladder, right? So what is digestion? Digestion is the process of breakdown of food, right? And absorption is the process by which the food is taken into the blood. The nutrients are taken into the blood, right? And main organ for metabolism is what? Liver, which is a part of the digestive system, right? So whatever I said, you have taken notes, just to go over those things, and most of the questions will be there. to have any problem. Okay, now we'll talk about the necessary life functions. What are the functions necessary for the life? Number one, maintaining boundaries. Two types of boundaries are present in our body. One boundary is the skin. You know that skin separates the body from outside, right? So that's the main boundary that separates our body from outside of the body. Another type of boundary you will see inside the body. Those are the cell membranes. Okay, cell membranes are also considered as boundaries in our body. Why? You know that our body consists of billions of cells. Now, each cell has its own boundary, that is the cell membrane, and that boundary separates the inside part of the cell from outside, extracellular fluid. Okay? So, this is another boundary present in our body. So, skin and cell membrane. Okay? So, those two boundaries, maintaining those boundaries is essential for our life. Movement or contractility. Movement is essential for our survival. Best example, that your heart, right, continuously moves. Your heart is contracting and relaxing continuously. And if the heart doesn't move for a while, what will happen? You will die. Right? So you don't want to die. So your heart contracts. So that is very important, essential for the life. Other examples you can give, your respiratory muscles, right? Contracting and relaxing and helping in the breathing. If the temperature in this room increases, then what you will do? You will run out, right? So you have to escape. And that is helped by the contraction and relaxation of your muscles. Without that, you can't do that. Okay? So you can give hundreds of examples. Responsiveness is very important. What is responsiveness? If something very hot touches your skin, your body has to respond to that, right? Respond by what? Respond by moving the hand away, right? Or body part away from the harmful stimulus coming from outside of the body, right? So some harmful stimuli are coming from outside of the body and we have to respond to that. Another example, I told you that if the room temperature increases here, then you have to run out, right? You have to respond to that changed environment. The environment has been changed, so you have to react or respond to that, right? So those are the examples of responsiveness to outside stimuli. That means those are coming from outside. But also continuously our systems, all 11 systems are responding to internal changes. Make sense? Because inside the body the changes are being taken place, right? So our body systems have to respond to that. Make sense? Like if your heart rate increases or your blood pressure increases, then your control system is the nervous system, right? Will send signal to your heart or the blood vessels to reduce the blood pressure, to reduce the heart rate, right? So your system is responding to that change accordingly to fix that problem. Make sense? Like if I ask you to breathe, inhale air, keep inhaling. At certain point, even if I ask you, you won't be able to do that, right? You have to stop, because when you are taking air inside the lung, your lungs are expanding, right? And they have certain capacity. It cannot go beyond that. And when it will reach there, the signal will come from the brain, okay, and tell the muscles, respiratory muscles, to stop. Yeah, your lung cannot take anymore. Okay? So that inhibition will come. So your systems are responding to the changed environment or changed situation in your body, inside your body. Make sense? If you're just, let me give you another example. If you eat too much sugar, then blood sugar will go up, right? then who will respond to that? Pancreas will release insulin, right? So you see, that is responsible. Your system or organ is responding to the changed environment inside your body. Continuously, that is happening inside the body. Digestion is the breakdown of food. Digestion is essential for absorption. If you don't break the food into small nutrient molecules, your blood will not be able to take it, right? Large food molecules cannot be taken into the blood. So it must be converted to very fine nutrient molecules. And that is very important. Metabolism. The main purpose of metabolism is production of ATP. And have you heard ATP? Okay. ATP provides what? Energy. Very good. So metabolism occurs to produce ATP, and ATP provides energy to our body. And we need energy in every functions. When your heart contracts, continuously we need to provide energy to the heart, right? When you move your skeletal muscles, you need energy. When nerve signal transmission occurs, it needs energy. Everywhere we need energy. So metabolism is essential. Excretion. When metabolism occurs, harmful toxics, harmful chemicals are produced in our body. And if those chemicals are not excreted out from the body, then they will accumulate inside the body, and they are like poisons, so they will destroy the cells or organs. Okay. Reproduction. If you ask somebody outside of this classroom and ask, what do you mean by reproduction? That person most of them will answer that production of new life, right? That is reproduction, offspring. But in biology, by reproduction, we also indicate the reproduction of cells. You know that cells multiply, right? One cell produces two produce 4. So that multiplication is also called reproduction. What reproduction? Cellular reproduction. Make sense? So 2 types of reproduction. Both are very important. Okay? Production of offspring and production of new cells in our body. If you just think that from now, this moment, like next 200 years, no reproductive systems will work, then what will happen?
All die.
Yeah, nobody will be found in the earth, right? On the earth. So the mankind will be eliminated.
Everything would be really.
Yes. Makes sense? So the reproduction, offspring, production of new life is very important. Now, cellular reproduction, why it is important? Some cells in our body are dying continuously. For example, the red blood cells. What's the lifespan? 90 to 120 days, right? 3 to 4 months after the red blood cells die. Then new red blood cells should be produced, right? By multiplication of the stem cells. So, the cellular reproduction is very important. When you chew the food, okay, you crush the food, hard foods, they destroy the cells in the mouth continuously. That's going on, and new cells are being produced there. Okay, so cellular reproduction is also essential. Growth, adequate growth, normal growth, sufficient growth of the organs of our body is essential for our survival. For example, you know that heart has how many chambers? 4. And they are separated by septum or partitions. Okay. Now, some patients, you will see that they have incomplete septum. Okay. So septum is not complete. That means the growth or development of heart is incomplete, right? And that could be dangerous. That person may not survive if the partitions are not formed correctly, right? So just an example that how the normal growth is essential for the life. Okay? So each organ of the body must grow enough and normal. Now we'll talk about the survival needs. To operate necessary body functions, we need few things. We need to supply nutrients from outside. We need to supply nutrients to the body because we know that proteins, carbohydrates, fats, those molecules are needed for metabolism to produce ATP and energy. Oxygen also required for metabolism. So that's why we take oxygen from outside inside the body. Water is the most abundant chemical in our body. Remember that water, our body is mainly water, mainly formed by water. And water is the site of almost all chemical reactions in our body. Water dissolves the chemicals, okay? And then chemical reactions occur. We know that thousands of chemical reactions are being taken place inside the body, and without water, those chemical reactions will not occur. Just if you have any chemistry background, you can simply think that if you put two dry chemicals together, most of the cases, the chemical reactions will not occur. Make sense? If you just put two dry chemicals, in most of the cases, reactions will not occur. Now, if you dissolve them in water and mix those two solutions together, then chemical reactions occur, right? So, for chemical reactions, we need water, and that is essential for our body. Normal body temperature for the systems or organs in our body to perform their functions normally, we need to maintain the normal body temperature. If the temperature in our body changes, many things can happen. Let me give you a couple of examples. Again, if you have chemistry background, you know that for chemical reactions, optimum temperature is needed. Do you know that? For chemical reactions to happen, we need to maintain the temperature. How about this side? Do you know that? We need to maintain the temperature. And if the temperature goes up, the chemical reactions will either stop or will slow down. Make sense? If you drop the temperature down, same thing will happen. Either the chemical reactions will stop or will slow down, right? So thousands of chemical reactions are being taken place inside the body, and for those chemical reactions to happen in normal speed, we need to maintain the normal temperature. Very simple. Another example, if the body temperature increases, what will happen in your heart? Heart rate will increase. If you know that when we get fever, heart rate increases, right? Or when you do exercise, the body temperature increases, heart rate increases, right? That is okay for a while, but if 24 hours your heart rate is high, then it's dangerous, right? So that's why maintaining the normal body temperature is essential for the systems or organs to perform their function normally. Make sense? Otherwise, the organs or systems will not work normally. Okay. Appropriate atmospheric pressure. Why we live at the sea level, not why we don't live on the top of Mount Everest. Because why we don't live on the top of the mountain?
Air pressure is less.
Very good. The air pressure, oxygen pressure is less there. So our body cannot get enough oxygen, right? So why we live at the sea level? Because the oxygen pressure or air pressure is normal for our body. Make sense? So maintaining the pressure of gases in the atmosphere is essential for the life. If we don't have that, we may not survive. Okay? Okay. So now we'll talk about homeostasis. Homeostasis is the mechanism of maintaining a relatively stable internal environment despite continuous outside changes. What is that? Remember one thing very important in physiology, that our body, our systems of our body, they always try to keep the body environment constant, even if outside of the body environment changes. Our systems, they will all work together to keep the internal environment of the body constant, unchanged. Okay? Example, when you start exercise, okay? When you do exercise, sweating occurs, right? Why? When you do exercise, metabolism increases in your body. Make sense? Metabolism increases and metabolism produces heat. Now, sweating, when sweating occurs, water gets out from the body, right? Through the skin, water gets out from the body. And that water takes a lot of heat out with it. So, body temperature will go down, right? So, your body is acting or working to reduce the temperature of the body, right? To keep the body temperature normal. Make sense? So that is one example of homeostasis. Our body is continuously working to keep the internal environment constant or unchanged. That is the homeostasis. So we know that two systems in our body are called the controlling systems, the nervous system and endocrine system, and those systems are the parts of homeostasis mechanism, because if I told you, if your blood pressure increases, then your brain has to send signals to the heart and blood vessels to reduce it, right? So brain is the controlling system, part of controlling your nervous system, right? So we need the control signals from the nervous and endocrine systems. Okay, nervous system works through the nerves, and the endocrine system works through the hormones. We know that. Okay, so nerve impulses are from the nervous system and hormones from the endocrine system. Okay, so there are some components of homeostasis. So if I ask you what are the components of homeostasis, homeostasis has receptors, control center, and effector. So those are the components of homeostasis or homeostatic mechanisms. Now we'll see how those three components work. Okay, so let me go back to the same example I gave you. If the temperature increases, then sweating occurs, right? If the temperature increases, then sweating occurs. So if the temperature increases, first your temperature receptors, I have talked about that, right? In your skin you have temperature receptors. Those receptors should detect the temperature, right? If it is hot or cold. So receptors must detect the change of temperature, right? That part is done by the receptors. Then receptors will send signal to the control center. So you know that control center is the nervous system in your body. So we'll send signal to the control center, and your control center will do what? Like if something hot, another example, touches your skin has the hot receptors, temperature receptors, they will detect that and will send signal to the brain, right? Then the control system or brain will interpret that signal. That is very important, right? Interpretation means that first thing, is it hot or cold? If it is hot, is it really very hot or it's okay? Should you move your hand away? Make sense? All those things will be done by what? Your brain, your control system. Make sense? All those interpretations will be done by the brain or control system. And then, if your brain thinks that yes, or your spinal cord, part of the central nervous system, thinks that you should move your hand away, then control center will send signal to where? To move your hand, you need what? To contract the muscles. Is it clear? Skeletal muscles, right? So, your control center, your brain or spinal cord will send signal to the muscles to move your hand away. Is it clear to everybody? You understand it? Okay. So, you see here, now again I am repeating, when something hot touches your skin, first component, the receptors, right, will detect that, will take that stimulus and will send to the control center, to the spinal cord of brain. Is it clear? Okay. So receptors are located in this case in the skin. Okay? And then the receptors will send signal to the control center. Control center will interpret that signal, right? What you have to do. And then we send signal to the effector organ. In this case, the effector organ is what?
Arm muscle.
Muscles that will perform the task to react, right? So again, the receptors are the temperature receptors in your skin, right? And then control center is your nervous system, and effector organ in this case will be the muscles, right? To move your hand away. So all those three are needed. Make sense? If you just only feel that very hard something has touched you, if you don't move your hand away, that's not right, right? So you have to complete the homeostasis, you need all those three components, okay? Okay. Another example, you can take like, you know that in your house you have the air conditioning, right? And one part of air conditioning system is the, what is that called, you put on the wall? Thermostat, right? Thermostat, that will, you can set that, right? If the temperature goes above 70, then the air conditioning will turn on, right? Air conditioning will turn on. So that's like receptors. Monitoring the change, right? Monitoring the change. If the change is beyond that you have set there, then it will send signal to the system, right? And system will turn on, right? And the air conditioning will turn on, then we decrease the temperature to fix that problem, to fix the temperature. Okay? So that's how the homeostasis works. Here, in this picture, they have shown our body always tries to maintain the balance inside the body, equilibrium. Now, if the equilibrium is lost, imbalance occurs, then the receptors will detect that change and will send signal to the control center. So receptors will send signal to the control center, and control center will send signal to the effector, and effector organ will fix that problem. Okay? Make sense? Okay. So those are the three components. Yes.
Is that a positive?
Okay. So now we will talk about that. Okay. So homeostasis has two mechanisms. Two mechanisms are positive feedback and negative feedback mechanisms. Okay. So homeostasis has two mechanisms: positive feedback and negative feedback. One example can be helpful for you to understand. Like you know that on the highways or freeways, when you drive, you see the signs, right? The speed limit, that maximum speed or minimum speed. There is a maximum and a minimum speed, right? Like you are driving on the highway with your girlfriend or boyfriend, sometimes you forget, right, what you are doing. So you, drive too fast. If the speed limit is 70, then you are driving like 90 miles, right? Very high speed, or 100 miles. Then if you see a police guy or police car standing, then what you do? You press the brake to slow it down, right? Slow it down. So when you are driving, you monitor the change of speed on a speedometer, right? So your eye has the receptors that monitor the change. And if you see that you are really driving too fast, that's not good, then your brain will interpret that, right? That then will send signal to the muscles of your leg when you press the brake, right? To slow the car down, slow down the car. So in our body, we have a tendency, our systems have tendency to work more than we need. Most of the cases, remember, in most of the cases, our systems try to work little more than we need. So what our control system does, control system always try to suppress those systems that don't work too much, don't drive too fast, okay? So that is called the negative feedback mechanism. If the system works more, then control system will send the signal. What kind of signal? To inhibit or suppress the function. Make sense? That's it. Does it make sense? So in most of the cases, our body systems work a little bit more than we need, and our control, that's why our control system is there, keep them suppressed. Now that is the negative, inhibiting or suppressing. Okay, so it negates. And positive feedback occurs in very few instances in our body. I'll give you a couple of examples. But before that, what is the positive feedback mechanism? If any system or organ in your body performs low, below normal, less, then the control system will send what kind of signal? Positive signal to increase that function, elevate that function. Make sense? So that is positive feedback mechanism. So now if I ask you that which mechanism works more in our body in most of the cases? Negative, because I said that most of the systems work more than we need. Okay? That's why a lot of negative feedback mechanisms are continuously occurring in the body. Positive example, only a few cases positive feedback works. One is when you get a cut, bleeding starts, right? And after a few minutes, what happens? Clot is formed, right? Blood clot is formed, and clot starts to get bigger. Okay? How? The platelets, one type of blood cell, just know that some few platelets get together, get attached to each other, then invite other platelets to get attached to them, and that's how the clot gets bigger. So this is the positive feedback mechanism, getting bigger. Okay, the clot is getting bigger. Another example, the contraction of uterus occurs during the birth, right? During birth, delivery, initially the uterus contracts very weak, and then the force of contraction increases. Okay, so when weak contraction occurs, then that from the uterus signal goes to the brain, where it sends positive signal to the uterine muscle, the muscle of the uterus, to contract more forcefully. Then that sends more signal to the brain, and positive signal comes down. Okay, to contract more forcefully. So it's increasing the force of contraction. Okay, so that is another example of positive feedback mechanisms. and that happens in some cases. So from this part, I may ask you a few questions. One is, homeostasis is what? The process of maintaining, very good, process of maintaining the internal environment of the body constant, right? Unchanged. Okay, now homeostasis has how many components? Components. Three components: receptors, control center, and effectors. Is it clear? So remember, don't mix the components with mechanisms. How many mechanisms? Two. The positive feedback and negative. Okay? So how many components? Three. What are the components? Receptors will detect the change, control center will interpret and send signal to the effector, right? And effector will do what? Fix the problem. Make sense? So those are the three components of homeostasis. And how many mechanisms? Two. Which two? And negative. Which one occurs more in our body? Negative. Okay? If I ask you blood clot formation is an example of positive or negative? Positive. Uterine contraction, positive, right? Those are just examples. All other, most of them are negative because our body systems try to work more than we need, and inhibition comes down from the brain. Okay? So let's
So
stop
basically,
here.
a positive is just an increase and a negative is a decrease
That's
of,
the general-
of a function.
Yes. It could be mediated by hormones or by nerve signal. Okay. So here the example. Okay. Okay. Good. Do you have any questions?